Hey guys, just take a look at this anime's story here. After going out to protect two young girls, Kazuya Shina wakes up in a world he always dreamed of. A world of magic and fantasy. He is reincarnated as the third son of a noble family. At the age of 5, the gods bestow upon him numerous divine blessings and extraordinary status. And there, the story unfolds with Kane having many adventures and learning a lot while trying to hide his true power from everyone. The anime begins with Kazuya going to a place called Combine, something like a convenience store. There, he witnesses a thug attacking two innocent girls. He jumps in to save the girls but ends up getting stabbed in the stomach. Unfortunately, Kazuya dies. But right after that, he wakes up in a place he's never seen before and wondering where he is. He observes the surroundings and notices a maid-dressed girl near him. When she sees him awake, she gets emotional and calls him by his new name, Kane. Then, his supposed new mother also calls him and places his face between her breasts. At that moment, Kane looks into the mirror and realizes that his appearance has radically changed, and now he's just a 3-year-old boy. Seeing this, he goes into shock and starts freaking out, wondering how this could happen. After some time in denial, he begins to understand what happened and even feels happy to have reincarnated and started a new life. He begins to investigate how this world works and who he is. He discovers that his name is Kane Von Silford, and he is 3 years old. He has a father and mother, and an older sister who is 2 years older. But his father is a rogue and has other children from his first wife who are older and will inherit the throne. He explains that his father is a marquis who defends his nation from invasions and is highly respected. Kane continues to study and learns many things, discovering that the world is full of monsters and magic is common in that place. Kane is very happy and starts to study to learn to read and write, as this will allow him to learn magic from the books. After learning to read and write, he asks his father to let him read the magic books. But they tell him that he must wait until he's 5 years old to use magic, as he can only be initiated at that age. Until then, he must dedicate himself to studying magic from the books. Kane continues to study and secretly manages to use basic magic. Then, his maniac sister begins to teach him about the history of that world and tells him that an adventurer named Yuya was the one who founded the kingdom they live in. Those who are familiar with Isekai anime that are being released may have noticed that this is the name of another strong protagonist who also went to another world. That's at least a big coincidence. But going back to the story, she also explains to him about the different races that exist, like dwarves, elves, and beastmen. Time passes, and Kane is now 5 years old. Finally, he can be initiated and allowed to use magic freely. His parents explain about the god's blessing, telling him that he can receive blessings from level 1 to 5, with level 5 being the strongest and very rare for someone to receive. After that, they go to the church, and the priest performs the ritual for him to receive his blessing. After finishing, an old voice smiles, and suddenly Kane is transported to the world of the gods. The gods say that they know who he really is and reincarnated him out of pity, as he died unnecessarily trying to protect the girls from the thug. And because he died in such a fruitless way, they revived him to give him another chance. Kane is desolate to discover this, and he starts crying. Afterwards, the gods say that as a reward, they will grant him all their blessing. Kane thanks them and is happy to have a new family. Kane returns to the world, and his father asks him to show his stats. Kane feels anxious since he received blessings from all the gods. He pretends to have a stomachache and runs away. He hides and checks his stats. He notices that all the blessings are at level 10, which is impossible, as the maximum in that world was level 5. He realizes he made the right choice not showing them to his parents. Luckily, the gods left him with an ability to hide his stats. Later, they celebrate Kane's baptism, and this time he shows it using his ability to hide them. However, even so, they are completely shocked by the amount of blessings and enormous amount of mana he possesses. Kane realizes he forgot to hide these attributes and ends up making a mistake. His father says that with all these abilities, plus his item box, he has secured a successful life forever. He also warns him not to show his stats to anyone, as having so much power could make him seem like a threat to the kingdom. Later, Kane decides to try an invocation from the book his father gave him. He goes outside and tries to summon the so-called creature. Kane expected a cute creature, but he summons something totally demonic. His sister appears, and the monster decides to attack her and her friend. But Kane interposes and tries to save them. He manages to send the creature back, but ends up taking a big hit and faints. Later, he wakes up and is surprised to be alive. His sister thanks him, and in his thoughts, Kane decides he will help the people of that world. The next day, during breakfast, his father announces that he will hire private teachers for magic and combat for him. Kane is very excited upon hearing this, just Like how I get excited when you guys like and subscribe to this channel, subscribe. There. Soon the teachers arrive, and Kane takes a look. But he trips on the balcony, and guess where he falls? Exactly where everyone falls face first in animes. On the teacher's boobs, a classic. The butler introduces them to Kane. Their names are Millie and Nina. From now on, they will be his teachers for magic and combat for the next 3 years. They start teaching him, and quickly discover that the boy is a prodigy. Millie is impressed and decides to have a sparring match against Kane. They start fighting and Kane completely overpowers her, making her give up for now and have Nina teach him magic instead. Nina says she wants to start with the basics, but Kane tells her to skip that part, since he already learned it from the books. Just like Millie, Nina is very impressed to see that Kane can use all 4 elements. Kane explains that he has the blessing of the goddess of magic and the god of war. That's why he can do those things. He also reveals that he has the ability to hide his status. Upon hearing this, the teachers fall into depression, knowing that he is a genius, and there isn't much they can teach him. Kane asks them to request permission from his father to train outside the castle. His father agrees, as he knows it would be bad if one of Kane's spells ended up destroying the castle, but he sets a condition: they must return before sunset. Kane is very excited as he leaves the castle, as it is his first time outside since the time he got baptized. Nina asks him to perform a test by directing a fire spell at a large rock, which he does as she asks, resulting in a huge explosion. They are completely astonished by his power, but before they can express their surprise, they sense the presence of monsters approaching to attack them. A killer rabbit comes toward them, but it diverts and heads straight for Kane. They worry, but Kane deals with it easily. After that, they teach Kane a new technique called search. It serves to detect monsters in the vicinity. Just by observing them, Kane figures out a variation of the technique, where he can also see the quantity of monsters and their direction. Kane fights against an infernal rabbit, but it escapes into the forest. When Kane tries to chase it, the 2 teachers stop him and advise against entering the forest, as there are very strong monsters there. The training is called off for the day, and that night Kane checks his stats. He notices that in just 1 day, he went from level 1 to level 8. The next day, his teachers take him to the guild to gather information on monsters. Kane is very happy as he has always seen this in animes he watched. The guild lady provides information to Millie and Nina, but afterwards, a bully starts harassing them. They reject him, and he tries to force himself on them. Kane gets angry and intervenes, telling them to leave them alone. Kane beats up the first guy, who gets even angrier. He tries to attack Kane, but Kane easily avoids all his strikes. In the final attack, Kane stops him with just 2 fingers and demands that he apologizes to his teachers, but the bully refuses, and Kane throws him out of the guild. Now only 2 thugs remain. Cowardly, they threaten to stab the teachers' necks, but Kane deals with them easily as well. Afterward, the teachers thank him for protecting them, and Millie praises his combat skills. They continue training and defeating monsters. Time passes, and the end of their lessons is nearing. Kane decides to give them gifts as a thank you for teaching him. For the past 3 years, he remembers that they once mentioned they would like to have magic item bags, but they are very expensive and rare to find. Kane comes up with the idea to make the bags himself, 2 of them to give to the teachers. For that, he will need materials from monsters in the forest. He defeats a bloody ogre and then a Terra dragon, legendary monsters that would normally require an entire army to be defeated. The castle soldiers, upon seeing the explosions in the forest, think they are under attack. His father goes with the soldiers and upon arrival, notices a trail of destruction and finds a handkerchief which he discovers belongs to Kane. The next day, Kane has his final adventure with his teachers. After finishing, he talks to them, and they tell him that it was his last test, and now he is graduated in magic and combat. Kane thanks them and gives them the 2 item bags he made for them. Millie and Nina ask Kane how he did that, and nonchalantly, he says he defeated a bloody ogre and a Terra dragon. Upon hearing this, they are completely shocked. As I mentioned before, those monsters would require at least an army or a large group of adventurers to defeat. Kane explains that he thinks the bags don't hold much, but he made them from the heart. He says they should fit only the size of the mansion where he lives. And once again, upon hearing what Kane says, both of them are completely astonished, because the magic bag they would buy would fit at most a small carriage. He adds that a bag with the capacity he mentioned costs a lifetime of work. They say that something like that could attract assassins after them, and they might be in danger having it. Kane, on his part, tells them not to worry, as he enchanted the bags to be used only by them. And if someone else tries to use them, the weight of everything inside will fall on that person. In the end, they thank him and say it was a great experience teaching him for those 3 years. Kane also thanks them and says he learned a lot from them and that he's very happy. While he's speaking, both of them give him a double kiss, and he blushes. They say their goodbyes and leave. Now Kane is 8 years old and is about to begin his life of adventures. This episode starts with Kane fighting against a gigantic dragon. The boy lands an attack on its head, and the big thing goes down. After that, he checks his stats and realizes they've increased tremendously. He even earns the title of Monster Enemy and Dragon Annihilator. Later, IT shows Kane heading to the capital. He's now 10 years old and has to attend a special ceremony for nobles. While they're on the way, Kane asks if it will take long to get there. His father says about a week if monsters don't appear. Kane uses magic to scan for any nearby, and surprisingly, there are dozens of them 3 kilometers ahead. His father is impressed that he can detect monsters so far away. Kane mentions that they're attacking humans and they need to go quickly. Realizing time is short, Kane uses wind magic and speeds towards the monsters. Upon arrival, he notices many humans have already fallen, and many are injured. He decides to attack, using magic to take down one after another. The monsters approach the carriage, and he realizes he can't use magic without hitting those behind them. Kane grabs his sword and manages to dispatch the remaining monsters. Afterwards, he tends to the wounded and gathers the bodies of those who have fallen. His father arrives and notices the coat of arms of the royal family on the carriage. 2 girls emerge from it, Princess Telestia and Silk, a noble. Both of them kneel before the girls, and they thank Kane for saving them. Kane notices they're mentally distressed and uses a calming magic on them, quickly easing their tension. They thank him again and introduce themselves. Silk mentions that she saw everything through the window and admiringly says he was amazing. At this point, the 2 nobles begin to compete for Kane's attention. They ask where he's headed, and he says he's going to the capital. They're happy to hear that and reveal they're headed there as well. They drag Kane along, even as he calls for help from his father, who is shocked and confused by what's happened. While on the way, the 2 girls stick close to him and begin to take advantage of him. They say that once they stop, they'll all sleep together. They reach a city, and Kane tries to say goodbye, but they grab him and say they'd be too scared without him around. With no choice, Kane agrees, on the condition that they have a large room with separate beds. They agree, and later that night, they prepare to sleep. They decide to push the beds together to be close to him. Kane attempts to protest, but they say they're afraid monsters might attack them during the night, and they feel safer with him. Kane stops resisting and accepts. The next day, Kane has dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep. They continue traveling for a few more days and arrive at the royal palace. Kane returns the bodies of the soldiers who fell in battle, and a knight thanks him for allowing them a dignified burial. After that, Kane learns that an audience with the king has been scheduled for him. He gets nervous upon hearing this. Upon arrival, the king thanks him for protecting his daughter from the orcs. Then the king declares him, a 10-year-old boy, a baron. He gives him a mansion and 10 platinum coins, which are worth a lot in that world. After the king says this, the nobles complain since he's just a child. The king reprimands them and asks if any of them would have the strength to deal with dozens of orcs alone, silencing them. After that, the king asks to speak privately with Kane and his father. They go, and again the king and his advisor thank Kane for saving his daughters. They then talk about his future. They ask him if he would be happy to accept the hands of Telestia and Silk. And they also mention he can't refuse, since they've slept with him, they can't engage to anyone else. After much pressure, Kane agrees, and thus they become engaged. But they can only marry when they're adults. After that, the 2 girls are happy and loudly declare they'll never forget the nights they spent together and how their bodies were close. Upon hearing this, their parents get angry, and nervous Kane tries to explain that it was only because of the bed arrangement, and it's not what they're thinking. After that, Kane goes home and receives a lecture from his sister and his father. They say he's quite the ladies' man. Some time later, Kane goes to the church in the capital and connects with the gods. He has a little conversation with them. The gods mention they're bored and ask Kane to use his knowledge from his past life to create a game for them and everyone else. Next, his sister takes him to a women's clothing store, and he feels very uncomfortable. He runs out and finds a friend outside with her father. Kane asks to take a look at his store. He enters and is impressed, and without wasting time, he makes a proposal to Tomanis, the girl's father. He says he wants to create something recreational and already has the idea in his head. He shows the merchant, who finds it incredible, and says he will produce it. Kian asks him for a prototype and hands him a gold coin as initial investment, and the guy is impressed. Outside, he finds his sister who is furious that he ran away from her. However, Kane knows how to deal with her. He just gives her a few compliments, and she quickly becomes sulky. The next day, Kane returns to Tamani's store, and he has already finished the first prototype of the game. They play together to test it. The merchant is very excited and says that it will certainly sell well. Kane suggests making 2 models, a simple one for the general public and a more elegant one for the nobility. The partnership between them is decided. They pray to the god of commerce and kind of register that patent. From now on, for up to 3 years, they are the only ones allowed to produce that game. Sometime later, the party that was the initial reason for Kane to go to the city begins. There, he meets several nobles. At this point, he meets Silk and her father again. She thanks him again for saving her, and Kane treats her as he does his sister, lavishing her with praise, and she falls for him. This kid knows what he's doing. At this point, her father gets annoyed and interrupts. He says that Kane is very skilled with women for a 10-year-old. Kane's father explains that it's because of his sister, who always gets happy when complimented. After that, the king appears along with Teles, his daughter. Kane again compliments the girl, making her go all shy. The king scolds him and asks what his father did to raise such a charming son. After that, Kane shows the game he created to the king, and the king finds it interesting. He invites Kane to the reception room to discuss the game further after the party. After that, Kane meets Silk again, and they have a conversation. At one point, 3 noble boys approach, looking for trouble because Kane is with Silk. Kane responds to them, and they challenge him to a fight outside. Kane agrees, and they go outside. Silk clings to Kane, making the fat kid even angrier, as he's jealous of her. At this point, they start casting magic spells to attack Kane. They strike exaggerant poses and conjure their magic. But unlike expected, a small spark appears, and the next one tries. Just like the other, he strikes flashy poses and conjures his magic, this time earth magic. Again, it comes out very weak. At this point, Silk loses her patience and argues with them. She asks if they don't know who they're dealing with, saying that the guy behind her is Kane von Silford, the son of the Marquis who became a baron at the age of 10 by fighting dozens of orcs to save the princess and Silk herself. Upon realizing who this boy they're picking a fight with is, they kneel and apologize. They say they've heard of him and hastily run away. At this point, Silk says she wants to have a meeting with Kane. Teles arrives right at that moment. She asks what they were talking about, and when Silk mentions the meeting, Teles gets jealous and says she wants to go too. Kane agrees and says he'll also meet with her. At this exact moment, her father appears and asks Kane what he was planning to do. Teles tells him that Kane invited her to a meeting. The king gets angry and scolds Kane again. Some time later, Kane shows the game he created to the king, and he finds it very interesting. He even considers making it an exclusive game for the nobility. But Kane refuses and says he wants to use it as entertainment for the general public too. After he says that, Silk's father talks to him, saying he heard that Kane invited his daughter to a meeting. He says that despite their engagement being set, everything is still a secret, and they shouldn't attract too much attention in public. The king agrees, saying that he should be very cautious. This episode begins with Kane receiving the key and deed to the mansion given to him by the king. Kane feels relieved, since finally he'd be able to leave early and have free time. But what he didn't expect was for the Duke to arrive and invite him to play Reverse, the game Kane created in the previous episode. Kane accepts, but soon a bunch of people show up to play against him as well, and Kane would soon be occupied for a long time. After that, Kane heads towards his mansion. Upon arrival, he notices that the place is completely in ruins, and it seems to have been abandoned for years and years. He goes inside and confirms that the place has truly been abandoned for years and looks very run down. He continues to inspect all the rooms and it just keeps getting worse. Despite the ugly situation, he notes that the house is actually quite large and not entirely bad. Then, Cain uses magic and starts cleaning everything rapidly. He cleans and repairs everything at an incredible speed and is very happy with the result. He lies down on his bed and hears the voice of Sylvia, his maid. She is accompanied by other maids and Colin, his new butler. After that, the maids go off to clean the entire house, but they're surprised to find not a grain of dust in the entire place. Cain mentions that he already cleaned everything with magic. Sylvia easily accepts, knowing him for years, but the new butler finds it impressive and finds it strange that the other maids aren't surprised too. Then, Colin tells Cain to head to his father's mansion. Since his two older brothers are going there today, Cain has to receive them. Upon arrival, his brothers say they're surprised that Cain got a title and even a mansion before them. They say they're really proud. After that, Cain invites them to see his new home. His father finds it odd that it looks brand new and totally clean, since he had visited the place some time ago, and it was completely dilapidated. Cain responds that he just used a little magic to fix and clean the mansion. His father thinks it's nice, but says he doesn't see any artwork, and for a noble, that's very necessary. He suggests it could even be a stuffed monster or something. Upon hearing this, Cain leaves and returns quickly. After that, the maids scream, and they go to see what's happened. When they arrive, they see that they're terrified by a massive red dragon right at the entrance of the mansion. Cain, on the other hand, says it's just a stuffed red dragon. His father says he knows that, and what he wants to know is why it's there. Cain explains that he defeated it and kept it as a trophy. Upon hearing this, his father is completely shocked, since not even a group of rank A adventurers could handle that dragon. But despite everything, his father admits that having a stuffed red dragon is better than any ordinary decoration, and he says one of those is worth 1,000 platinum coins. Cain thinks and is shocked to realize that that dragon is equivalent to 10 billion yen. After that, they hear a loud scream from Cain's mother and hurry to her. Upon arrival, she asks what the heck is that thing in the bathroom that shoots water to clean after use. Cain says he used magic to make water come out of it. Yes, he just made a magic bidet. After that, Cain's father dismisses it, saying that they made a big deal out of just that. They tell him to try it, and when he does, he says he has no choice. If they want it so bad, they'll have to have one too. The guy liked the blast in the rear. After that, his father informs him that he'll have to throw a party for the nobles, since it's customary in that world to do so when you buy or receive a mansion. They prepare everything, and finally, the day of the party arrives. Cain starts receiving the nobles, and everyone is astonished by the giant dragon. After that, Cain welcomes everyone and thanks them for being there. He mentions that he prepared a different drink and good food for everyone. Everyone is surprised by the champagne, as carbonated drinks don't exist in that world. They are even more astonished by the glass cups and the hamburger he prepared. Then, the king arrives and says he has never seen anything as beautiful as those glasses, since nothing like that exists there either. He drinks the beverage and is impressed by the fizz, and he is also very surprised by the hamburger, as it's really tender and tasty. After that, the king decides to test the bidet at the queen's request, and he lets out a shout when he feels the spray. There it is, and he exclaims that they need to install that urgently in his palace. After that, his butler calls him and notifies him that Marquis Corgino is approaching. Cain already knows him and knows that he's quite a nasty character. Cain goes to receive him, and the guy starts dismissing everything Cain presents to him. Corgino insults everyone in the place and demands to be served immediately. After he tries the champagne, he actually likes it but says it's bad. He does the same with the hamburger. But Cain had a plan already. Soon enough, the king arrives and witnesses Corgino's arrogant behavior and strongly reprimands him. The Marquis bows and apologizes profusely for his action, and the king tells him he should rethink his behavior unless he wants to lose his title. The next day, Cain goes to the king's palace to deliver some monsters he captured. Daim, the vice captain of the royal guard, encounters him and shows him the place where he could put the monsters. Cain, however, says it wouldn't be enough, since there are too many monsters. Daim then leads Cain to a more open area, and Cain unloads all the monsters he had in his item box, including earth dragons and other legendary monsters. Daim is extremely impressed and can't believe what he's seeing. The knight asks if Cain is a hero or a disciple of the gods, and in that moment, Cain becomes nervous and denies it. But Daim takes notice, and you'll see how this information becomes important later in the video. After Cain delivers the creatures, Daim invites him to demonstrate his sword skills to the captain. He first introduces Cain to the soldiers, who dismiss Cain and do not believe he can be that strong, as he is just a 10-year-old child. One of them volunteers to fight Cain, thinking it will be easy. However, Cain moves incredibly fast and defeats the soldier, leaving him astonished by his speed and strength. After that, Dime suggests that Cain fight against 30 soldiers simultaneously, and Cain has no choice but to accept. The fight begins, but before the first attack, the captain yells and orders them to stop. She arrives and asks if they have no shame pointing their swords at a cute little child, and then she hugs Cain. After that, Dime explains who Cain is, saying that he fought alone against 30 orcs and saved Princess Telestia. Upon hearing this, she becomes very happy, as she is extremely obsessed with fighting. She wastes no time and immediately invites Cain to a duel. They begin, and they engage in an exciting battle, both being very fast, but clearly, Cain outperforms her and ultimately wins. After being defeated, the eccentric captain suddenly proposes to Cain, and everyone is shocked. Cain becomes nervous and says she can't do that, as he's only 10 years old. She says it's fine and decides to go talk to the king to resolve this matter. They go, and upon arrival, the king is angry with Cain for having secured another bride, as he was already engaged to Teles and Sil. After that, the king explains to Cain that the captain is the princess of the Elven Kingdom, and marrying her would cause a huge stir among the two peoples. However, Tijuana, the elf, says she doesn't mind, and the king tells her she must seek permission from her father, the elf king. And so she does. After that, she grabs Cain and runs off to fight him again. The king and the nobles stay in the room discussing Cain, wondering how he can be so strong to the point of defeating the kingdom's finest knight. Then, the king asks Cain's father why he has such enormous strength, but his father doesn't have an answer either, as he has been very strong since a very young age. At this moment, they remember the question Dime asked Cain earlier. Well, he tells the king that Cain was a bit shaken when asked whether he was a hero or chosen by the gods. The king finds this odd and says he has a test to find out who Cain really is. Cain is summoned again, and the test is revealed. They hand him a book, and he begins reading it calmly without any concern. The problem is, the book is written in Japanese, and no one in that world understands that language, which is the Japanese language, the language of the kingdom's founder, the hero Yuya. Upon realizing this, Cain is quite surprised and confirms his suspicions that the founder was Japanese like him, and probably reincarnated just like he did. And soon enough, the king asks who Cain is. Cain has no alternative but to reveal everything. He tells them that he has memories of his past life and that he received the blessing of the 7 gods when he was baptized, and even met them. Upon hearing this, everyone is surprised. But Cain mentions that despite all of this, he likes his new life, and he is truly the son of his parents, he just holds the memories of his past life. After that, Cain displays his stats and reveals his true power. Obviously, everyone there is completely astonished to see the numbers and the amount of abilities and blessings he possesses. The king says that with his powers and being chosen by the gods, he could easily make everyone bow down to him, even take the king's place. Cain mentions that he would never want that, and he enjoys the life he has and would like to continue that way. He says that he didn't understand anything when he was reincarnated, but his father, mother, and many people were kind to him, and he enjoyed the adventures and experiences of learning magic. The nobles present promise not to tell anyone, and it becomes a secret. After that, the crazy elf returns and says she got permission from her father to marry Cain. And now the boy has 3 fiancées. And this is how today's video ends. Don't forget to leave your comment down below about what you thought. Also, remember to subscribe and give the video a thumbs up so you won't miss any of the upcoming videos. Finally, I've included an exciting video on the end screen, in the style of Taken, where Tetsuo takes down a Yakuza member and does everything to hide his body. It's an anime full of tension and mystery. Check it out, you won't regret it. Sound good? See you. A sensational video here on the final screen. It tells the story of Oliver, a boy who ends up in a sinister magic school, and there he encounters various mysteries and adventures. Click here on the screen and go check it out, it's totally worth it, alright? Until next time, see you later.